to you live from the KTN News Center here in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. This is KTN Newsdesk. I'm Ben Kitili. Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has criticized President Uhuru Kenyatta's government over what he calls widespread corruption. Raila also wants those behind the National Youth Service corruption saga to be held accountable, saying he has nothing personal against Devolution and Planning Secretary Anne Waiguru. The Devolution Secretary yesterday threatened to sue Raila for linking her with the missing millions at the National Youth Service. KTN's Michelle Ngele is working on that battle between Anne Waiguru and Raila Odinga, and the CORD leaders sustained pressure on President Uhuru Kenyatta's government over corruption. Crossing borders to South Sudan, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is inviting South Sudan's president and the rebel leader to New York later this month to offer the international support to their struggling peace. The CORD President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar were asked to attend the September 29th meeting after they signed the deal that provides for a ceasefire that is yet to fully take effect.
The meeting to be held on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly would include envoys from key neighboring countries as well as the United States, Britain and other European states seeking to end the war in South Sudan. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon hopes it will be attended at the highest level to ensure the implementation of the agreement receives the fullest possible support from the international community. President Salva Kiir has urged his people to join hands in implementing a deal to end the conflict after repeated outbreaks of fight since rebels and the government signed the pact last month.
It is a clear testimony that there is no genuine agreement reached so far among the parties concerned, except an imposed peace deal. And therefore, the element of fear and not genuine peace is highly predictable.
Meanwhile, Russia, Angola and Venezuela objected to a U.S. bid to impose United Nations Security Council sanctions on South Sudan's army chief and a rebel commander for their roles in the country's more than 20-month conflict, diplomats said. The United States had proposed to a UN Security Council sanction meeting that South Sudanese Army Chief Paul Malong and rebel commander John Olong be subjected to a global travel ban and asset freeze. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga has criticized President Uhuru Kenyatta's government over what he calls widespread corruption. Raila also wants those behind the National Youth Service scandal to be held accountable, saying he has nothing personal against Devolution and Planning Secretary Anne Waiguru. Waiguru yesterday threatened to sue Raila for linking her to the missing funds to the National Youth Service.
Speaking at a meeting with the Media Editors Guild of Kenya, the former Prime Minister commended the media for a job well done in highlighting the challenges and progressive issues of national importance. He also highlighted the role of the opposition, saying that both the sitting government and the opposition play a critical role in the success of the nation.
We've also been accused of ever being critical of the government and offering no solutions. That is us as opposition. Many times, we offer many solutions alongside the criticism, though we believe we are not a consultancy for the government.
Raila also addressed the state of the nation's security and proposed devolution of the sector as well as a completion of the security sector reforms as envisaged in the Constitution.
We have asked for the involvement of the county governments in addressing the problem of security, because we believe that security, as other sectors of our economy, should also be devolved so that the governors and their officers get to know what is happening in the counties. That's why we are proposing a security a county's security committee.
Still on devolution, the court leader said that the campaign to transfer health services back to the national government is an orchestrated campaign by forces opposed to devolution.
We have consistently appealed to the government to meet the constitutional obligation of releasing specified percentage of the budget to the counties in a timely and predictable manner. We will see the orchestrated campaign to transfer back health services back to the national government. It is deliberate. It is basically being orchestrated by forces that do not want devolution. Because it's not that there's no capacity at the county governments. How do you expect the counties to pay salaries to the doctors and nurses when money has not been released?
With regard to the country's economy, Raila said that the wage crisis is a result of the failure of the national government to align itself with the constitution, adding that the government is paying an estimated 60,000 workers who have been made redundant by devolution.
The standoff between teachers and the national government currently underway might just be the beginning. As the shilling takes a beating, you should expect that more workers will demand to be cushioned through pay rises. You have called on the national government to be prudent in the use of funds and especially in borrowing. You have also asked the government to embrace the devolution as a way of containing the wage bill.
He also addressed the lack of urgency in addressing the ongoing pay dispute between teachers and the government, urging the government to embrace devolution as a way of contending with the wage bill.
The standoff with the teachers is the most unfortunate because it also raises fundamental questions about the rule of law. Can a government go against a Supreme Court ruling and still enforce the same rule of law? We doubt it. And I've been saying that this government is a product of a Supreme Court ruling.
The former Prime Minister also commented on the NYS scandal, pointing out that Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waigoro was involved in a cover-up over hundreds of millions of money lost in the sector. Michelle Ngele, KTN News.
The United Nations has launched a program with local non-governmental organizations to support those who suffered sexual violence in South Sudan. So far, 8 South Sudanese women have benefited from that particular project.
Imprisoned by gunmen and sexually abused for 2 months, South Sudanese teenager Evelina has finally escaped the conflict wrecking her country at her birthplace, Khartoum. Once the city where she spent a happy childhood, she has returned as one of some 190,000 South Sudanese seeking shelter in Khartoum from their country's brutal civil war. Evelina became one of the first South Sudanese women to seek counseling under a program for victims sexual for funding as money flows to other refugee crises around the world. The program is not helping as many women as the agency would like.
You know, in every situation like this one, when there is a fighting, internal fighting in a country, people would need psychosocial support. Of course, the degree to what they need that would vary according to the situation and the experience of people. But definitely UNHCR at the moment has a small, let's say, a small program catering for this, especially in Khartoum.
Slightly built and dressed in colorful printed robes, Evelina remembered how gunmen snatched her from near her home in South Sudanese Unity State in July last year. The 17-year-old was waiting near her home as her mother took her 6 younger brothers to a UN camp near Unity State's capital, Bentiu. She did not know whether the gunmen were soldiers or rebels, just that they were in military uniforms. Shut in a tent every day, she was taken as the commander's wife and released 2 months later only when fighting neared the camp. She found her family at the UN base where she discovered she was pregnant. UNHCR launched a program with local NGOs in May to support those who suffered sexual violence in South Sudan. So far, they have assisted just 8 South Sudanese women and dozens more who have fled to Sudan from Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Yemen. President Omar al-Bashir granted South Sudanese a special non-refugee status, allowing them freedom of movement.
3 terror suspects were arraigned in a Mombasa court this morning, with the prosecution applying for 30 days to complete investigation. They were arrested early in the morning while en route to Garissa. The 3, Nagisarafat Gulam, Mwajuma Mweru Tayari, Samu Ali Athman, were arrested while on board a vehicle. According to a signed affidavit, the 3 were in possession of a laptop computer and its accessories, mobile phones, a surveillance pen, external military boots and screwdrivers. One of the suspects has a 2-year-old baby and pleaded with the court to grant her bail. Mombasa magistrate will make a ruling later this afternoon.
Your Honor, these are materials that are supposed to be subjected to the cyber crimes unit of the CID department in Nairobi. Your Honor, we reiterate that that's all.
Newsdesk. Now, after the promulgation of the new constitution, a number of independent constitutional commissions were formulated to make sure they take care of the implementation of the new constitution, including the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, the SRC, led by Sarah Serem, which is mandated to regulate salaries of public officers and keep a check on the ballooning wage bill, and also the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution, led by Charles Nyachai, which is mandated to making sure the implementation of the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, is on the right track. Those commissions are meeting in Eldoret this afternoon to just take a look at what they've been able to achieve so far, the challenges they've faced. We shall be talking to KTN's Mercy Kandia live from Eldoret in a while. Meanwhile, panic has gripped Tana River County following reports that the county may suffer the worst El Nino effects ever starting this October. Tana River Governor Hussein Dado has announced that his government has set aside some 50 million Kenya shillings to offer humanitarian assistance through the county chief. Though the county chief says the allocation is a mere drop in the ocean. He's appealing to the national government and well-wishers to move in and join hands in trying to avert adverse effects expected from the heavy downpours. This year's El Nino is expected to affect about 100,000 people in the county of Tana River, effects that will not only disturb livelihoods but shake many other sectors.
Right now, Red Cross have also done their assessment, and I think they have about 3 boats, but we require a minimum of at least 5 boats. They have very few life-saving jackets. They have some tarpaulins, but we need to then malaria, because malaria will have an outbreak. We will require tents, treated tents, and kitchenware.
To some business news now, Uchumi retail stores have successfully negotiated with Kenya Power to continue offering bill payment services to consumers. Following a 4-month suspension, the retailer, which has been undergoing internal changes in its top leadership, is looking to reposition itself in the market. KTN's Abiagina with more on that developing story.
It would appear a change of guard is turning around the fortunes of one of Kenya's oldest supermarkets, Uchumi. Fresh from announcing Julius Kipngetich as its new CEO, it would appear the retailer is mending fences with suppliers it had fallen out with. And today Uchumi resigned a partnership deal with Kenya Power after the power distributor terminated its deal with the retailer for failure to remit revenues. The renewal of the deal was brokered after the two parties entered into a payment pact for outstanding and future amounts. Under the partnership, the retailer earns hefty commissions for electricity payments made at its outlets. Kenya Power has been signing on main retailers including mobile service provider firms, among them Safaricom and Airtel, to tap into the huge traffic of shoppers who frequent supermarkets, mostly in urban areas. Uchumi hired Dr. Kipngetich last month and has so far managed to pay 500 million shillings to its creditors. The move is seen as an attempt to woo back suppliers and its business partners as part of its overall recovery plan. The retailer has in recent months suffered low supply of commodities in most of its branches after traders stopped deliveries due to unpaid debts. The sour relations with suppliers had seen customer traffic to its branches fall sharply, ceding market share to its main rivals such as Nakumatt, Tuskys and Naivas supermarkets. These supermarkets' management says they are now operating at over 80% of the desired stock levels, with efforts to restore the retailer to optimal capacity still underway. The retailer plans to close down non-performing branches once the evaluation of all its branches across the region is complete, a move that would see a huge chunk of its workforce edged out. Abiagina, KTN News.
In other news, religious leaders under the Ufungamano umbrella are asking the state to move with speed and address the ongoing teachers' strike. The leaders say taking hard stance positions on the matter will not solve anything and urge stakeholders to embrace dialogue. They are also blaming the shortage of funds in the treasury on high spending on wages by a few government officials.
It is our considered view that the government and the teachers' unions should dialogue sympathetically on the matter to save the education sector for the benefit of all Kenyans, taking into account the salaries and the emoluments for other employees in the public service. We call on the government to negotiate for a settlement with the teachers in the broader context of the entire economy, but one that does not further damage the economy or hurt the citizens.
There's more Champions League action tonight with defending champions Barcelona in action against AS Roma at the Stadio Olimpico. English champions Chelsea also in action, as well as Arsenal taking on Croatian champions Dynamo Zagreb. That's where we leave it on KTN Newsdesk on KTN for our viewers on KTN News. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Stay with us.